Hi, this is Rob Ryder speaking out of West Cornwall. This video is based on about really having a realization. This is Patrick Quanton and Eric Boalder. I think I've shown this book before. Why Me? Science and Spirituality as Inevitable Bed Partners, which is, I say allegedly, because you'd have to really look into this, the unified theory of everything. As far as I know, it's the first time published completely, mapped out. The equations are in there, the graphs are in there, and it's a unification kind of frequencies and sacred geometry. And in very, very, very simple terms, he's talking about the stillness of the ocean of consciousness, the creator God, if you like, that manifested itself. And then you could say the storms of the ocean, which is the manifestation of all this potential to experience everything there is to experience, and then it'll come back to the calm stillness of the ocean again. So he compares the stillness and the peace and the calm to the Garden of Eden, a state of peace, and things will just experience, and meaning everything in existence is a fragmented piece of the consciousness of the creator. Fragmented means contracted also. So when you have contracted consciousness, you're less aware of information than you would be if you had expanded consciousness. And he talks about we're at basically a juvenile stage of our evolution, humanity, quite a juvenile stage. So the universe fragmented itself into atoms teamed up to become molecules. Eventually cellular life came to that. Cellular life come together to create multicellular organisms. Then you have plants, animals, etc., and that came to us. And with that comes an expansion of consciousness as well. And we've got our nervous system and brain that allows us to bring in this expanded information that can be processed by a contracted piece of, if you like, universal mind that we all are, and we can take on more information. So the evolution is the evolution of consciousness. Consciousness has been fragmented and contracted into lots and lots of different things. It's you are one, I am one of them. And now the journey is now to expand consciousness to come back to the whole. And there's in the book, I'm not sure where it is, but again, here's the book. It asks the question, why me? Yeah, because we can have scientific debates about life and put across materialistic evidence for things and everything, but the big question, what on earth is life and why am I here? So why me? So you're at a specific point of evolution where consciousness is trying to expand again. And there's a quote in the book, I'm not sure if Patrick or Eric wrote that quote, but it reminds me of a kind of an Asian martial arts. It would come out of something like the Asian martial arts quote, which is the student wants to be the master, but the master always knows he's the student. Yeah, so, and you have other sayings like wisdom is knowing how little you know, things like that. And the one thing, especially in the freedom movement as well, because there's a lot of ego in that, and in the spiritual movement, but generally in life, in family dynamics, in all dynamics, everyone has to come to the conclusion and the awareness that you're a moron. We're all morons. When you think of how contracted our consciousness is. Now, ego doesn't want to know that. And this is why I had to look into psychology many years ago. Because as I go into the other book I wrote with Patrick, A Conscious Humanity, I talked about my story when I was 15. I kind of sensed something wrong, but I couldn't, in a million years, put it into words. I wasn't even conscious that was something wrong, or just something, I call it a feeling of not being quite right. And that led me to go from leave school, drift in and out of jobs, in and out of jobs, in and out of places, moving around, traveling, going to New York for a weekend, coming back 2 years later, traveling South America and Central America. And you externalizing this search, but really it's an internal thing. And you're trying to figure out things. And then you realize that you're a sovereign human being, the system isn't real, and things like that. But then you figure this stuff out and you try to tell other people, and then they don't want to listen, they don't want to know, or they intellectually understand it, but they don't see it's relevant. And then you start to, when you have other awakens, especially about the medical system, then you look at your own behavior and your own belief systems and you think, crikey, what a moron am I? And if you go back to the previous video, watering flowers in the rain, I think most people have done similar versions of that in their life, if they're honest. But you have to come to the conclusion that you're a moron. Yeah? You've manifested in this reality there, therefore straight away I know you're a moron, because you're in physical reality. We have all these people, especially spiritual teachers, putting themselves, maybe not in words, but portraying themselves as above all the evil and the bad doing that's going on in the world. And people who want to escape into 5D and ascend and all this kind of nonsense, new age stuff. They don't want to accept that they're a moron. Now, if you're honest with yourself, and this is not something you do publicly, you're just honest with yourself. You look back on your behavior, some of the things you've done, and thought, what a moron. Now, what do I mean by a moron? Well, contracted consciousness, contracted awareness. That's what basically being a moron is. So your behavior is dictated, as we know, by beliefs and perceptions. So if your beliefs and perceptions are controlled by what information you can take in the environment, and if that's contracted, your beliefs are going to be really contracted. That's why we need to a conscious humanity, expand our consciousness to become more aware of information in the environment and how we are responding to it. And the only conclusion you can come to is that you're a moron. In Patrick's, he's used sacred geometry to map the progress of human evolution, and he said, like I say, he says we're at a juvenile stage. All young children think they know more than they do know because they haven't got the life experience. They haven't got the expanded awareness that comes with life experience. They may know certain things and they can come up with good ideas, but they haven't got experience to start to be leaders in the world and leaders of communities and things like that. Funny enough, which is what the global elite are trying to politicize the youth, because they know that a very vulnerable age where they can be susceptible to taking on belief systems. For me, I was lucky in that I come to my own realization that I was a moron. What happens when you're explaining to people how the system works and you're trying to expand their awareness by giving them more information, they take it as, what, are you calling me a moron? Because I can't say that. That's how it's taken. In a way, that's what you are saying. If you're honest, you're saying your awareness of what's going on is contracted. You've behaved stupidly. Look at the last 4 or 5 years, whatever. Therefore, you need to accept you're a moron. Now, like I say, I had a lot of good fortune as I come to that realization myself, because I was genuinely put the pursuit of truth above my own ego. And that was something I really had to get a hang on, how powerful the ego is in not wanting to be knocked down a step and put in its rightful position. And it's a lot harder when somebody else is highlighting to you. They're not telling you you're a moron, but highlighting to you that you're a moron. And it's really difficult. And obviously, they're going to attack you for it. Yeah, you're going to be to blame. So these are difficult conversations to have. You have to be quite tactful and subtle, but it's difficult sometimes. You know, I'm not telling somebody you're a moron because I was there. Of course I was a moron, but accept it. Just own it. You know, own you didn't know what you thought you knew. Yeah, or what you thought you knew was a very small piece of a bigger field of information. And there's another chapter in the book. I was going to do a separate video, but it'll come into this, which was called Embracing the Monster, Acknowledging the Monster Within. That was in the book of Conscious Humanity. And a lot of people talk about the monster within, the shadow, the dark side of you that you need to get into and accept and incorporate. That's not what I'm talking about. The monster I'm talking about is the belief that you are right. Because if you have this strong belief you're right, then whoever opposes you is wrong. And in many positions, they could be then referred to as the enemy. This belief that you're so right, you are so right, because you're so clever, is so dangerous. Do you think, I'm pretty sure Hitler thought he was right. I'm pretty sure Stalin and Mao thought they were right. I'm pretty sure all the tyrannical dictators thought they were right. Yeah? No, I'm right. Nobody can get in the way. And that lack of challenging your own beliefs constantly on a daily basis leads to genocide. You know, and that's why we call it acknowledging the monster within. It's not necessarily deep psychology getting into your own dark side, but this powerful belief that you are right about something. This is what happened in the lockdown. People manipulated, obviously, to be put in a state of fear, and they were right. That if you go out more than an hour a day, you're going to cause us all to die. I'm right. This belief is really, really powerful. You have to admit then to yourself that potentially you could always be wrong about everything, and always leave yourself open to being wrong. Always leave yourself up. I mean, if you're really, really sure on something, you're going to go for it and stand by, but don't impose it on anyone else. One, because you might be wrong, and two, you shouldn't be imposing anything on anyone anyway. So the first step to wisdom, is not just knowing there's more to know, but it's starting off from the point that you're a moron. Yeah, and I really mean that. Look at your own past behaviors. I mean, I'm sure most of us have done things that are really intelligent, inspiring, and great. But some of the things, just look at yourself. What a moron. What a moron. How did I do that? Then, from a spiritual perspective, you come to see that you're a work in progress. That is all you are. How could you not be anything else? If you were a complete work of consciousness, you would be in a godlike state now. None of us are. Yeah? None of these spiritual gurus are, because they've manifested here on this planet in a physical realm. Therefore, that's contracted. If any of these are some kind sent down by God as a prophet, which, is a religious idea, I can't get in anybody else's mind. I can't vouch for that. I've certainly never met anyone who isn't a moron, including myself. But it's the acknowledgement that you're a work in progress. Because if you're a contracted piece of consciousness, then obviously you're not fully aware. It just goes without saying. If we're supposed to be expanding our consciousness, because the true evolution is the evolution of consciousness, Darwinian evolution, he wasn't talking about that. What should have been said is the adaptation of the species. The body, the physical body, can adapt to the environment. It's not evolving, it's adapting to the environment. With the evolution of consciousness, we can take in more information, we'll need to function differently, our bodies can then adapt to that new level of consciousness. So evolution in a physical sense is just an adaptation to the environment, and as humans are expanding our consciousness, it's an adaptation to our expanding consciousness, which is what is true evolution is, the evolution of consciousness. Now, if Patrick's right, and he believes in whatever time span, 1,000 years, doesn't matter, that it's interesting in his seminar that we had recently that I'm hoping to put up soon, he puts breathing into the digestive system. So if he believes that eventually we'll evolve to take on all the fuel, food, information we need through the breath, then eventually we have two choices. We eat physical food for the pleasure of it, but we might see we might not need it because we can get what we need out of breath. Our digestive system might shut down. Yeah, that could physically, if you don't use it, you lose it. So we could physically adapt our stomach. You know, the functioning of our body will be a lot less. There's other things that could happen in the future. He believes that potentially you won't need to evolve via AI anyway, because we're evolving far more than that, and we could eventually, again, no time span, communicate via telepathy. That's where we were evolving to. So our physical structure, our brain had changed, things can change, but the evolution is happening within consciousness. So if our consciousness is expanding, then that obviously means that it's very contracted at the moment. Look at the state of the world. It's a result of contracted consciousness. Basically, the world is being run by a bunch of teenagers, myself included, who were just running amok. Yeah? Contracted, reckless, moronic consciousness. Yeah? But, you know, teenagers are supposed to be a bit reckless. That's almost your duty as a teenager. You've got a few years to do stupid things. I've done it myself in the actual teenage years. In the bigger scale, what I'm saying, the whole of humanity is still in that stage. Some of us, hopefully, as you're getting older, you start to take on a bit more responsibility. But it's not a realization of, look how much I've grown. The first realization is, what a moron am I? And then you grow out of that. Yeah, I think there's too many people who are not doing the deep work and are still blaming the world, who haven't looked at the stupid things that they've done that could have detrimental effects on other people. Yeah, and everyone will evolve at a different rate. We're not all meant to come, you know, we're not all meant to go from this contracted experience to godlike consciousness in one lifetime. It's impossible. We wouldn't be able to take that anyway. It'd be too much information. But I think when you're looking at spiritual gurus and people, especially in the spiritual and the freedom movement, remember they're just a little tiny contracted piece of consciousness as well. Never follow anyone. Look at their information. You can like the person, you can relate to that person, great. But remember, they're contracted consciousness as well. You see them in their family life. You know, you only have to ask my wife that I'm a moron and my kids. You ask the people who know these gurus who are out there, they'll know that they're a moron. They will know. But they're selling you a lie. You need to see people for what they are. In family life, I can tell you, once you have an acceptance that you're all contracted consciousness and you're prone to be stupid, life gets a lot easier. Because not only do you accept people's errors, you own your errors. because you're accepting you're a work in progress. You're not looking for perfection. Yeah. People who think they live in peace and harmony, I think there's a lot of repression there. Yeah. So, yeah, we're all morons. Come to that understanding, and it's not an attack or a criticism. It's just a look at yourself and acceptance that we do know nothing. That is the start of wisdom. There's a lot more to know, and when you start to expand your awareness and consciousness, you start to see things differently, and you'll do things, or you won't do things the same anymore. And it's not, I'm saying you're a moron. Listen, we don't have to be hard on ourselves. It's just where we are as a species. It's just where we are. I'm not attacking human beings, because we are expanding our consciousness. But you have to accept that you are a contracted piece of consciousness. Too many people won't accept that. Way too many people won't accept that. Patrick, who's wrote the Unified Theory, everything within the book is put stages of where you can be aware of where you're at. He's not put himself at the top. He's just, through a hard time he had many years ago, he realized afterwards on reflection, it bumped up a stage in his evolution of consciousness, his own consciousness, which is part of the whole consciousness. But on his particular consciousness, he realized through a traumatic event, he'd gone through another stage himself, which means he's got many to go, which means none of us are perfect. Can't be dealing with these spiritual gurus who seem on the surface to know everything. Yeah. I think I'll leave it at that one. We're all morons.